Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, college football fans across the nation and around the world. This is Tim May with the Tim May Show featuring Clay Hall. Clay, a big one coming up Saturday in the shoe. I don't know if the shoe can hold it, man. This foot may be too big. Ohio State, number 2 in the country in the coaches poll, versus Texas, number 1 in the country in both major polls. A shootout like this has never been seen at the beginning of a season. And don't throw Miami Notre Dame at me again, because that happened in the middle of October, way back in 1988. But the bottom line is 1 versus 2. We're going to go with the 1 versus 2 motif. We're going to continue that. But it's Ohio State hosting Texas. Showdown, a replay. No, not a replay, a rematch of 8 months ago, but not a replay, because these teams are so different compared to what they were 8 months ago, just 8 short months ago, with Ohio State losing 14 starters, 14 players to the NFL draft, Texas losing 12. But they've reloaded like these kind of programs do. They're both really at the zenith of their talent acquisition, for want of another term, as they called it down in Texas way back when, meat on the hoof, as Woody called it. You win with people. But here we are, man, just as we record this, just less than 24 hours away.
I must tell you, that open deserves a drum roll.
Yeah, there you go. I'm going to get you a drum for next week.
We really needed, and today.
And a symbol, by the way, when I say something really profound.
Kaboom.
Yeah.
I have been on campus. The place is teeming with people. It is bumper to bumper on Lane Avenue, and you're starting to see a little influx of the burnt orange. And I tried to interview a couple of them, but they had trouble discussing.
Well, they can't speak your language, obviously.
What was going on? No, they couldn't follow my.
You should have had me there, since I grew up in Texas. I could translate for you.
So people are flocking in, and you get that sense, man. And again, I keep going back to Notre Dame, Ohio State 95, and everybody wanted a piece of the action. Yeah. People are taking pictures. They're talking. Oh, what is this? And that's like our so-and-so. And you hear them talking, and the weather is great. And it's just an ideal stage for. And I kind of keep going back to Sayin and Manning, Sayin and Manning. Yeah. And we'll hear from head coach Urban Meyer, and I ask him, how do you deflect the pressure and the hype, and so they can play, just get out of bed like a regular dude, put the pads on, and it's just not regular. Because another thing was, to have this game. You're coming out of last season, one winning the title, the one getting oh so close. And then what does that do for spring ball, summer, fall? The sense of urgency is real.
Yes.
As Jim Tressel used to say, and it's real.
Yeah.
And so, I'm feeling it. I mean, it's literally, just a few precious.
And everybody's saying, why isn't it a night game? I want to get, after all this buildup, I want to get here as soon as possible. So noon kickoff, it suits me fine.
Right.
And by the way, when you said teaming, it's really going to be that way. Come about 10 a.m. tomorrow on campus. It's going to be like feeding time at a fish pond, at a fish pond. I mean, where you throw the feed out there and the fish come out of nowhere like piranha. I expect to be like seldom seen times when it comes to the amount of people in and around the campus, part of the tailgate scene. I would hasten to believe there may be 50 or 150 to 80,000 people there who aren't even there for the game, who are just there for the tailgate and the extravaganza that's going on. So the old saying, get there early and plan to stay late. I mean, I think that definitely abides for this game. And by the way, before you make another salient point, which you're really good at doing, especially when you point at me, I know you want to make a salient point. Yeah. I mean, like you just pointed to, we've got Urban Meyer talking about this game. How do you handle the quarterbacks in a situation like this? Right on down the line, former coach at Ohio State, 3-time national championship winner, 2 at Florida, 1 at Ohio State in 2014. We've got Bill Bender, one of my great friends in the profession, national correspondent for many years for the Sporting News. Even though he lives in Pickerington, he has a great handle on all things college football.
There you go.
And then another good friend of mine, we've only seen each other seldom, but he's a real good guy because he talks my language. Kirk Bohls from the Houston Chronicle, but before that, he was the Tim May of Texas football in terms of covering for the Austin American-Statesman for like 4 or 5 decades. And he covers Texas football, Texas sports for the Houston Chronicle, does a hell of a job. And, we reminisce a little bit. We mainly talk about this game, this matchup, what fans might be about to see, because, man, I hate to say this because I talk a lot. You know that.
Say it.
You've been around me. I'm kind of tired of talking about this game.
Right.
I mean,
that's why we're having some interaction with these other folks.
I want to see it
just to get their take as well.
Well, what do you say?
Where do they stand?
You want to go to your take? Your little quick little interview you did with Urban Meyer as he was getting ready for this game at the Fox the Fox set. Let's go with that first and see what he has to say.
Without further ado. Here we go. Great to be with the 3-time national champion coach, former Buckeye head man. And I don't think you'll mind me mentioning 7-0 against the team up north.
That's good.
Let me tell you, this is going to be incredible. What do you think this opener on the schedule did for these two teams, spring ball, summer, and fall camp?
Well, the seriousness getting into a game, sometimes you open up with 3 teams you're prohibitive favorites against. And that I would actually count those as almost scrimmages. I would never say that to the team, but I wouldn't bang them very much. This kind of game, you had to jump in a preseason camp, full speed ahead, and then you also had to back off much earlier. So, you don't want these guys hitting. I used to like to give them at least 2 weeks of shoulders to get ready, especially for a physical game like this.
Okay.
So, instantaneous, I will say this, though. In the BCS area, you couldn't lose a game.
Right.
In the playoff area, you can. So there is urgency, but this was a death knell a couple years ago, whoever lost.
Let's X and O it. Texas rebuilt offensive line, Ohio State rebuilt defensive line. Who wins that battle, or is that the key matchup for you?
Oh, there's a bunch of key matchups. I think you got to start with the darn quarterbacks. These guys are taking. Normally, you get a little time to get your feet underneath you. Arch Manning has a little bit, but still not like this. And Julian, I've been hearing about him since the day he walked on campus. But here's an interesting matchup.
Okay,
Sarkisian and Ryan Day are 2 of the premier quarterback coaches in the country.
Right.
I know how I would handle it, like I did Cardell Jones. First time starter against a top 5 defense. I am not going to put this guy in harm's way. And I told him the mentality was, Cardell, get us 2 first downs. That's it. And then let the playmakers do their deal. Get 2 first downs, that'll flip the field. I think the first score is going to be whichever quarterback makes that mistake. And that's going to be, because I think it's going to be 2 really good defenses. They're not going to be much scoring early on unless someone makes a mistake.
Can a coach like Urban Meyer diffuse the hype or the pressure for a Julian Sayin or even Arch Manning?
Oh, I think both of them. I'm hearing first-round draft pick, Heisman candidate, and I dealt with that with Tebow. When you'd win by 14 points, and the media would be like, and the fans would be like, "Man, what happened today?" And I'm like, "What?" But a lot of hype. I think more pressure and hype on Arch because it's insanity. And I'm not sure he's got the surrounding cast. That Buckeye receiver room. Brian Hartline's the best recruit, I think. One of the best in college football history. And what he's done, they just keep reloading. I think a big key in this game is going to be Carnell Tate. I think Texas is going to do the same thing they did a year ago. Put 2 people on Jeremiah and force someone else to win the game.
Right. I like Brandon Ennis in that spot. Coach, thanks for the time. You better say hello to Tim May or he might get upset.
Man, I heard you 2 guys were together and 2 of my favorite people. And next thing, they'll throw Dom Tiberi in there and we have a pretty good 3. Good seeing you.
He might be next. Appreciate you. He does remember us.
Yes.
Some locals he does love.
By the way,
do we tell Dom this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. Yeah, we'll have to tell Dom. He'll be very jealous. Dom Tiberi. I feel pretty good about myself in the sense that I helped Urban. Help's not the right term. He would have gotten back on his feet anyway. But after a lot of the stuff that went down,
at Florida
with Jacksonville, with the Jacksonville Jaguars and stuff.
Yeah.
He and I hooked up on an Urban's Take with Tim May, just like this says the Tim May Show featuring Clay Hall. but believe me, Urban's Take with Tim, I knew people were tuning in to watch. They tune in to watch you on this, and they tune in to watch him on that. But we did that for a couple of years, and it was a couple of years for On 3, and had a really good time doing it. And then, of course, Fox and I think Sinclair Broadcasting. So yeah, hey, let's get a podcast going with our 3 three dudes, and this turned out to be very successful for him and Rob Stone and Mark Ingram. So, kudos to Urban, because, I know people, all people, everywhere you run, everybody's got a different opinion about Urban Meyer. My opinion about Urban Meyer was, Urban, my big line was, don't ask Urban a question you don't want to hear his answer to.
Sure.
Number one, he was never afraid of any question, at least when I was dealing with him. And then number two, if I had to text him for something, it was very rare. I had to make sure it was pretty important. You know what I mean? Because because even though it was a text, he would act like you just woke him up in the middle of a nap, or understand? I mean, it had to be pretty urgent, and he would get back to you. And like you said, I mean, Urban's not a big, huge, small talk kind of guy.
No,
but he's a pleasure to deal with, because what's coming out of his mouth, at least is gospel according to him, and that's all you want from a person, right?
I remember.
I mean, I really enjoyed working with him.
No question. And even he had walked by, was going up on the set, and I knew they were going to go through a long run through, or they orchestrate the little thing on the field. And I texted him again. I said, "I'm ready when you are." Thankfully, he had his phone out, and he went. And I'm over here like this, and he tells this guy, "Go get this. This is Clay Hall.
Yeah.
Go grab him." And so he saved me an hour there. And I just, I go back to the first time he had been here. How long, when those two former players who will go unnamed were urinating behind the boat?
It was during the Memorial Tournament, so he'd been there that long, 7 months
before he had played a game.
Yeah.
And I had gotten his number, and I looked at Mike Jones. I said, he goes, "No, don't, no. There's going to be bigger stuff." I said, "I know, but sometimes, whatever."
My big line is, you don't have to answer the phone and you don't have to answer the text, but shame on me if I don't send one, or if I don't try to get a hold of you.
Right. And I did, and he did pick up. And in fact, I had just passed him that day on the course. He goes, "You just had a conversation with him." And Mike, no,
that's all right.
Anyway, we move on.
Yeah.
But he didn't berate me.
No,
he said, "We'll handle it."
Well, I mean, he's been around the block a few times. He understands. Goodness. I mean, and Urban, Urban has his moments where he wants to be dialed in, and not be disturbed. I mean, without a doubt. And, but I always enjoyed things with him, because a lot of times you got raw emotion with Urban.
No doubt.
I mean, but here's the thing. I think he was really hurt by that one moment he had with a reporter down in Florida.
The Sporting News?
Yeah. Wherever it was. I don't even want to name names.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
But that one thing that got recorded, and everybody thought, that's Urban Meyer. That's the way he treats the media. No. Did he ever lecture us? Did he ever just stand up there and lecture us like Saban used to lecture the Alabama media about this, that, and the other? Do you remember Urban Meyer ever standing up there and lecturing us? He would lecture maybe on something about recruiting or something. He was lecturing the world, not us. But I'm saying where he literally was taking shots at us. I don't remember that ever happening.
No, I recall him in a sit down with him the first time I met him. He goes, "If something comes up and it's newsworthy and it's police or it's whatever, that's legit.
Yeah.
You didn't make that up."
Right.
And he was like, "I'll comment. I'll say, but don't." Again, maybe is what he's saying. If somebody takes a leak behind the bogey, don't call me.
Yeah. Although you did.
Mike Jones. Hey, Mike.
You know what's funny? The bogey is no longer there, I think, right?
Well, they
it's been refurbished.
It's in transit.
Yeah, it's in transit.
It's renovating.
It's being fumigated. No, I'm just joking. I mean, that was a moment in time. Yeah, I didn't mean the bogey. Yeah, I'm talking about the parking lot beyond, which is where the transgression happened.
Right.
But anyway, that is what it is. I know somebody else who got in trouble at the bogey inn, but that's another story for no day, because I never talk about that person. Bottom line is we also talked with you and I talked with Bill Bender of the Sporting News, as I talked about a while ago, and just to get his take on this game of games. He's the national correspondent for the Sporting News on college football, on basically anything really, but definitely college football. And let's get to our conversation you and I both had with Bill Bender. Oh man, we're at Ohio State's last media opportunity as we record this of the week before the big game, and look who we run into. One of the nation's top correspondents when it comes to college football, college athletics, Bill Bender of the Sporting News. Thanks for joining us real quick, man. And I know you got tons to do. This is opening weekend, par excellence with all the big games, but the biggest one is going to be in Ohio Stadium. And just, you know, I know this is a general question, which I don't like to ask, but what's just your overall take going into this of the atmosphere, what you expect from this game, the impact, etc.?
Well, I would say enjoy the moment, right? It's not often that we get 1 versus 3, technically 1 versus 2 if you look at the coaches poll, and have this setting and kind of a redux of what happened last year in the semifinals. So, you know, one of the things I thought that was interesting from Steve Sarkisian was we're talking about 26 guys went to the NFL from this game last year, 32 if you count free agents. So for me, Tim,
crazy, right?
Yeah, Tim, Clay, I'm wondering who steps up. You know, we know Jeremiah is going to play well, and Caleb and Arch. You know, who are some of those hidden stars that make the difference in this game?
You know, I was struck by Brandon Ennis when he said that Julian Sand got the announcement that you're QB1, and he said he changed. There was a little more pep in his step. What do you expect from this young lad on Saturday when he's going against preseason number 1?
Yeah, you guys have been around this program forever, so you know the pressure that comes with being Ohio State's quarterback. Sure. But there's a privilege to it, right? So what we saw from Julian in the spring game was accuracy, getting the ball out on time. I don't want to say the 3 of us could throw it to Jeremiah, Brandon, and Carnell, but, you know, I think just keep it simple.
Maybe we could.
I might be able to I think I could get him a screen, right? Just, and then dealing with a really good Texas defense that, while they do have Anthony Hill and they do have Michael Taft, they did lose a lot of their secondary to the NFL. It's funny, Clay, for what Texas lost in the secondary and what they lost in the offensive line,
right?
Those are the big questions for me with Texas.
Oh, no doubt about it.
I agree 100%. You know, the interesting thing about Julian Sand, and Brandon Ennis alluded to this, but people forget, man, this was an Elite 11 stud, an elite player in the Elite 11 quarterback race. He was considered a dual threat quarterback coming out of high school. That's why he really appealed to the big time teams. Of course, we know he signed with Alabama. Nick Saban, he might have been Nick Saban's final quarterback, right? You know, the way things work out, ends up at Ohio State and stuff. So he's not, you know, he's not milk toast walking into this thing. He's been in some kind of big time moments, at least competition wise. Meanwhile, Arch Manning, the ballyhoo with Arch Manning has really baffled me a little bit, because I think he's a tremendous player, tremendous prospect. But is everything that he's gotten in the preseason, including some people call him the Heisman Trophy favorite, is that justified at this moment? Bill, you're a national guy.
Well, we leaned into that. We put him on our All-American team. We put him number 1.
Right.
But why would you bet against a Manning long term? Now, does he have to do all of this Saturday?
Yeah.
And I think something Sark said earlier this week also stood out. He's like, we don't need you. Here's something. Consider the difference in what Sark said about Arch. We don't need you to be superhuman. We just go be you.
Yeah.
Versus Ryan talking about Julian. He said, what did he say over and over again? Go win the game. Right?
Go win the game. Period.
Keep it. Be you. Go win the game. And if you listen to those guys talk about the other quarterback, they would say athletic, smart, makes quick release. It's almost like a mirror image.
Yes.
That's what makes it so interesting. To answer your question, Tim, there is not a huge gap between Julian Sand and Arch Manning based on what we've seen on the field, and that's one of the biggest questions we'll see answered on Saturday.
And what's the bigger question? Ohio State replacing 4 starters in what I call the defensive ditch, or Texas replacing, I think, 4 starters on their O-line?
Well, I would ask you back, like, is it Kenyatta? Who steps up, right? Who gets the pass rush going for Ohio State?
It's Kenyatta Jackson. I've already penciled him in as my breakthrough player. I did it a year ago. So a year later, now he's ready.
This is his time, right?
Yes. It's his time. It is his time. And everybody has sung his praises. Let's see what he can do.
Yeah, and I think he's one of those key breakout players we were trying to talk about, right? Like, we know Caleb Downs can play. And like you said, which guys get pressure on Arch versus
vice versa?
The communication. right? 4 new offensive linemen in that stadium, in that environment where every network is here and every person on every, I can't wait. And, Sonny was talking about that today. Sonny Styles, where Pickerington kid, of course, really happy for him being a captain, by the way, in his hometown. Just that challenge of they haven't seen a ton of Arch film, but they've seen enough of it because he played last year that they'll be able to prepare.
And I brought it up with Caleb Downs. They pretty much are watching the same video of him that they watched getting ready for the Cotton Bowl. I mean, because except for one play in the Cotton Bowl, that's it. You understand? And unless they got their hands on some Texas spring game, spring fling, whatever you want to call their last thing. Hey, last thing for you, Bill, and Clay will probably have something too, and of course I'll have something else, even though I said it's the last thing. You know me, we've been together.
He does this.
But you and I have been together many times. Don't you? I mean, you just get the sense of it's more to me for both of these quarterbacks, young quarterbacks. It's going to be a little bit like being a matador, because Ohio State occasionally is going to send the house. You got to believe. Let's see what you got, and vice versa. Trying to shake up Arch Manning. I mean, trying to shake up Julian saying Texas is going to do the same thing. I mean, don't you have that sense of young quarterbacks still? Let's see what they can handle.
Well, who can get the running game going? Big game, top 5 games, top 10 games.
Exactly.
What I watch after the first quarter is who ran the ball a little bit.
Yeah.
And can they get Trey Wisner going? On the other side, Ohio State, who are these running backs that replace the 2 guys we've been watching in August, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's
Big
a big question, right, Clay?
No question.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And there's some great names in there: Bo Jackson, Turbo Rogers, and James Peoples.
And he always leaves out C.J. Donaldson. He's the number 2 running back.
Well, I tried to make him Eddie George to Coach Lockley. He goes, don't use that name. I said, just in build. He's 6'2", 235.
Yeah.
So does Ohio State
Prevail? No.
Well, do they? Let's establish the run. We'll get into the pass later. Do they come out? Do they drop back and go to JR on some kind of streak? Who knows? But it is it as compelling a game that you've ever covered?
Well, I think it's as compelling a game with a non-conference team since the last time they saw these guys here 20 years ago.
Sure.
And I talked to Mac Brown about that, and one of the things that he was interested in is a noon game. It's not an advantage, but is it more of an advantage for Texas than it was for him when they were in a primetime spotlight at Ohio State with Vince Young, but that Ohio State defense got after him? And he told me, we couldn't hear anything, Bill. We couldn't hear anything.
All right.
So it's gone Ohio State's crowd to get going early with that noon spotlight. I think they will. I have the Buckeyes winning 31-24, but the more I think about this prediction, am I going too high? You guys tell me.
I don't know, man. The last time they played, touchdowns were at a premium, and 2 of Ohio State's touchdowns,
28-14.
One came on a 75, 80-yard screen pass, and the other came on a Jack Sawyer sack, scoop, and score. You take those 2 out of it, those are 2 of Ohio State's 4 touchdowns. So those were very talented teams. I do think there are going to be some gaffes in the secondary on both of these teams occasionally. Because Texas is going to air it out, win it out, air it out. I like their wide receiver core, but not as much by any stretch as I like Ohio State's. I think finally you got to get the ball into the hands of Jeremiah Smith, Brandon Ennis, Cardinal Tate, Max Clare. They've got that transfer tight end from California they really like. I'm talking about Texas, and the Wingo kid right on down the line, the transfer from Stanford, Mosby. So I think they feel pretty good about their receiver core too. There's going to be a feeling out period, and then I think both of them are going to try to win the game, whichever way it takes, because really this is a referendum and not one all at the same time, because as long as it's a close football game, does it really matter in December when the committee's looking at things?
Well, and that's a question I have. What is the meaning?
Yeah.
You heard both coaches talk about,
baby.
we want to win the game, we want to win the opener. It's not always ideal. Ohio State playing Grambling, Texas playing San Jose State, the opener to lead up to that, would that be more advantageous? Sure.
Yeah.
But it adds to the excitement that they're just going to go out and let it play. And like Steve and Ryan both said, the committee's not going to penalize them, are they? No, not if you go out and this is a close game. Not
These
at
are
all.
big brand schools.
Correct.
The only way that could come into play is if both have
About
2.
to bring it in.
Both have.
He's going.
But go ahead. But both have 2 losses, and now I'm talking about 2 losses afterward. You know what I mean? And then that could be the real cutting point.
Yeah.
All right, fellas.
Thank you.
Can't wait.
Good.
Thank you, Bill
Let's do
Bender. Enjoyed it. I did very much enjoy that. I like always speaking with Bill Bender, and now that I've got a clay shooting partner in Clay Hall.
Yeah,
I enjoy when Clay Hall takes his shots.
I like the tag team approach. It's
fun. Bill's such a good guy, but he's also thorough as hell. He's written quite a few stories for the Sporting News, and sportingnews.com is where you find it now. Leading up to this, really nice story with Mac Brown, who brought Texas into Ohio Stadium, the first time Texas and Ohio State ever played. People don't remember or don't understand. This is purely a series of the 21st century. They never played until 2005. And then Mac Brown brought that team in, led by Vince Young. They found a way to win. And what did they do? They went on to won the national championship. The next year, Ohio State went to Texas. What'd they do? They ran roughshod over Texas, in my opinion, with Troy Smith and Ted Ginn Jr. and James Laurinaitis running around making plays, and all these other guys making plays. That Ohio State team then won the game of the century and probably had a letdown, but Urban Meyer put his claim to fame by beating Ohio State in the national championship game, the BCS game, as you guys referred to. In that series. He won 2 championships in 3 years with Florida, but Troy Smith got him there. He won the Heisman Trophy, but he didn't get to enjoy the fruits of a national championship. But these are big-time legendary programs. And why they never played before 2005, one thing I heard was Woody and Darryl Royal were friends, and they didn't want to play each other.
Right.
These
are big box brands.
Yeah. Yes.
Did you see what Mac Brown said about these 2 games?
Go ahead, though.
It's advantage Texas because next year they get the night game. He said, I've never been in a place that was so loud. I was trying to talk to my assistants.
He's talking about Ohio Stadium in 05.
Shoulder to shoulder in 05, and he said couldn't communicate.
Yeah.
And so he was just advising Sark on what you're in for, my friend.
Yeah.
Even though it will be noon and not at night when he caught the team and he beat them. But at any rate, I think it's going to be nuts. And, the fans have been advised, stand up and don't be knitting.
It's mythical that things are louder at night. The reason it seems like they're louder at night because it seems like there's a roof. But I mean, Oregon was in the middle of the afternoon last year at Oregon. That was as loud a stadium as I've ever been in. It lived up to the reputation. But Ohio Stadium, people I know sit in the stands, man, for the big moments, I would put that. I would stack that up against any venue, in my opinion. So that's going to be interesting. That little idea when Ryan Day was not begging, but pleading might be the right word, right? Or he's beckoning. He was beckoning the crowd to be as loud as it was against Indiana last year.
Well, then
when Indiana could not call plays. I mean, Indiana couldn't check. Now the flip side of that is your defense is on the field too at that time, and you want them to at least be able to communicate. But yeah, you definitely want the offense struggling out there to communicate when you've shown them one thing defensively, and now you flip it to something else, and they're trying to change their play or whatever. You definitely want to make it as difficult as possible. Do you remember, Clay? You're old enough. I know you are. Do you remember when Jim Harbaugh coached, I think it was 2 delay a game penalties?
Yeah.
At Ohio Stadium?
Right.
I think it was delay a game. I think it was only 5 yards, right? I don't think it was unsportsmanlike conduct. No. Back when they were trying to make the crowds be quiet.
Right.
Back in the day, like a golf tournament. And they finally gave up on that. But now, of course, the quarterbacks have radio communication with the sideline, with the offensive coordinator and a couple other coaches on the side. Like I know Julian saying he'll have in his ear at some moments, he'll have Billy Fessler, the quarterback coach. Definitely have Brian Hartline. And he might hear Ryan Day from time to time. Same way with Arch Manning. He'll have probably 2 or 3 guys available to talk to him to call plays up to 15 seconds before the play start, before the shot clock runs out.
Well, just imagine. I mean, we're sitting here with headphones on in a quiet studio.
Right.
If there were 30 people in here ringing cowbells or waving towels and screaming at the top of their lungs, it might be a little bit harder to, I mean, that would be a test.
I don't know if community
as my buddy Rothman used to say, can you get it from here to here?
Yeah.
And some guys can do it better than others.
Yeah.
But you've got the thought here. Can you articulate it? And can you Can you make a play
Yeah.
when, hey, Texas, can you make that play when 99,000 people are on your case?
Yes. Case. That's the right term. Case.
Sorry.
That's the right term. And yeah, like I said, it was about as loud as it could be against Indiana last year. And that wasn't a night game. I don't remember it being a night game. So, and obviously against Michigan, it was very loud in Ohio Stadium. So, and that's always been a noon game, except for that one game of the century when it started at 4. But I digress, as I usually
was
do.
Was it 4? I thought it was 3:30, but I think
No,
you're
it was.
right.
It was a weird time. It wasn't 3:30. It was like, I think it was 4.
Okay.
We don't need to debate that anyway. It was in the afternoon, late, and it was dark when it ended. Right, that's the way you could definitely tell. But let's get to our final little interview here, and it goes on a little ways. But Kirk Bohls, man, he's always been held in high esteem, extremely respected. A correspondent for the Austin American-Statesman for like 4.5, 5 decades. And then all of a sudden the Houston Chronicle came and plucked him, as I told him, out of the transfer portal. But he's worked for the Houston Chronicle now for a couple of years, a legend down in Texas as far as just his bulldoggedness and approach to getting the job done. But did you want to make a point before we go to this?
People like Kirk Bohls and people like Tim May, you put writer/historian.
Yeah.
Because you can articulate 5 decades of richness in that noodle of yours.
What did you say? It has to go from here to here?
Yeah, when you get it in the head and
sometimes
you gotta get to the mouth.
Sometimes on the way to from here to here, it goes out my ear or something. I'm not sure anymore. But we're having a good time. That's all that matters, right? Right, Clay?
You got it.
Boy, if we ever
All
get as matchmaker Urban Meyer would say, if we ever get Dom Tiberi in here in a 3-way,
look out.
Look out. It would be crazy. Skyline Chili might have another, you have to name a 3-way after us.
There would be a lot of shouting.
Yes. But anyway, hey, but without further ado, let's get to my conversation with Kirk Bohls. He can add some spice to what's coming on Saturday. Oh my goodness. Kirk Bohls, a legend in the state of Texas when it comes to covering University of Texas football, University of Texas sports. For so many years, 51 years, he was at the Austin American-Statesman. Now he's at the Houston Chronicle. He got a bump. I don't know if you got a bump or not. Kirk, did you get a bump?
You got to get a bump, okay?
Why else would you make the move, right?
Time for a change of scenery, right?
Yes, exactly. But bottom line, man, welcome to the Tim May Show, man. I've been wanting to have you on for different reasons. Well, I can't believe I didn't have you on before Ohio State played Texas last year in the showdown at Jerry World, a.k.a. AT&T Stadium. But here we are. Here's Ohio State playing Texas. You and I have been around a long time. No offense, Kirk. We both have gray hair. Mine's thinning. Yours is still pretty nice on top. My point is, we've seen a lot of football, and I keep saying this. As talented as these two teams are, the fervor of which is accompanying this matchup, this tsunami of a matchup, Ohio State, Texas, season opener, 8 months after they had, my opinion, Ohio State's greatest test in its run to the national championship was that game against Texas in the Cotton Bowl that turned on 2 huge plays. Right. I would so much rather see this game October 30 than August 30 because we both know these are babes in the woods compared to the teams they're going to be as this year progresses, because the talent is obvious to anybody who follows recruiting or just uses their eyeballs on these two teams, right?
Hey, maybe we'll see them August 30th and January 19th.
There you
That's
go.
A possibility too. Let's do it twice. Let's run it back. So, God, I love these games. I live for these games. That's why, I'm in my 70s and still working. It still excites me. It still gives me goosebumps to go to these stadiums and see epic games like this. And that's what a lot of these schools don't realize is that, I'm scared to play them. I don't want to play Ohio State or Michigan. Texas just played Michigan last year. The Ohio State this year. They played Buckeyes here in Austin next year, then Michigan. They got a home and home in Notre Dame. I mean, I give Texas and Ohio State big props for not shying away from it, and they owe it to college football. I was talking to Chris Del Conte, the Texas AD, just this week on Monday, and he's still OU Nebraska. They got to play every year. It's such a loss for fans and players when those games go away, isn't it?
Well, I grew up born in Alabama, 11 years. I always have to explain this because I wasn't anywhere long until I moved to Ohio. 11 years Alabama, went to Alabama home games with my dad and older brother, Ben. I had three brothers. And then we moved to Texas in 1965. As I like to say, I saw Joe Namath play on Two Good Knees. I said that before HBO did in their special on Joe Willie. But then moved to Texas, was immersed in everything about Texas football, Texas high school football. Grew up in Lufkin, where it was, Friday Night Lights. They could have filmed that. They could have filmed that movie there, just like they did in Odessa. They were even the Panthers in Lufkin. They had an 11,000 seat stadium in 1973. Right on down the line. My point is, I'm immersed in Texas football just like I was Alabama football. Then I moved to Ohio when I was 22, and I've just been blessed because I've been a football fan since I can remember being anything. Since I can remember being a being, I've been a football fan. Probably the same thing with you, college football fan. And you're right, man. To see one of these kind of matchups, it's crazy. And there's, whether they're going, we're going to get into that in a minute, whether they're going away with two conferences going to 9-game schedules. I don't think they should, but this idea of the SEC playing a Big Ten team, well, I don't think I'd be so jacked up if Ohio State was hosting Mississippi State. You understand what I'm saying? So there's all kinds of ways of looking at the SEC Big Ten playing each other every year, but Alabama at Northwestern, I'm not sure that's going to be what everybody's looking for, right? In that regard. But my point is, it is cool to see people, and Ryan Day pointed it out too, just like you said about Chris Del Conte. These games are good for college football, and because two better fan bases, there aren't. There are some that are equal, but not two better fan bases than Ohio State, Texas. Agreed?
Absolutely. Well, they've both won like almost 400 games. It's just they're two of the premier brands in all of college football, no question about it. And I just love it. And even after the SEC decided we're going to play 9 conference games and go from 8. Del Conte's right there. No, we have an obligation of football, obligation to our fans to play these games. And the players want to play them. They may not want to play 22 games in a year like we were discussing with the CFP, but they want to play in games like this. Absolutely, without question.
You know who Ohio State's got in the second game this year?
Who's that?
Grambling. Always tough Grambling. You understand what I'm saying? And, the actual schedule should have been Grambling, Ohio University, and then Texas, not reverse order.
Exactly. It'll be interesting. Who do you think that favors? Does it favor? They both have a lot of players coming back. A lot of big names are gone, as you and I both know. But, does it favor? I mean, it's the season opener for both. But does it favor one team over the other that it's so right out of the box? You think, Tim?
I think home field matters in a situation like this. I think the fact it starts at noon. I think I wrote that very thing when Ohio State hosted Oregon back in 2021. It wasn't the first game of the year, but when they hosted Oregon in the first game and then probably got bushwhacked by Oregon, which was starting a game at 9 a.m. its time, right? A high noon game. So you never really know because you and I both, we've been around long enough to know these games. The term Adam King from Channel 10 used, he described this game potentially as being clunky just because they kind of know each other from the last meeting, which was only 8 months ago. Number two, they've got a lot of changes on the offensive line for Texas, on the defensive line for Ohio State. So you got to figure Ohio State push come to shove with Matt Patricia as a new defense coordinator. They're just going to get after it up front and see what happens. They're going to try to make life miserable for Arch Manning, just like Texas, vice versa, right? They've got a youngish defensive front. What do? Take away a lot of the decision making, just get after it and see where the chips fall. So I think it does have a chance to be a clunky game because they're going to, obviously Ohio State's going to try to take away Wingo and maybe the Mosley kid. I'm not sure how much he's going to factor. I've heard good things about him. But from Texas's passing game, just like Texas is going to try to take away Jeremiah Smith, which they, quote, did last time they met. But you watch a video, like you and I were talking about this before this show started. It was more like Ohio State took away Jeremiah Smith in that game because there were opportunities there that they just opted to use him as a, quote, expensive decoy. And so how do you see it kind of playing out in that regard with two first-time, full-time starting quarterbacks, but with a lot of weapons around them.
Yeah, I guess the defenses are going to try to make these young quarterbacks win the game, but I don't see a lot of 20 play sustained drives. We were talking earlier like the Cotton Bowl turning on those two big plays, the screen pass right before the half when Texas inexplicably is blitzing on that play for God knows what reason. Then the toss sweep and the Jack Sawyer play for the ages. It's got that same kind of feel to it. And I know Texas and I know Sark, he's going to be aggressive. He's not going to go into the shoe thinking, okay, hand off tackle right, off tackle left. They have two very good running backs and Trey Wisner, the only SEC returning rusher with 1,000 yards.
That's right.
And then C.J. Baxter, they're supposed to be the bell cow last year and tore his ACL in August. He's back and healthy. So, but Sark's, the old pedal to the metal thing. He's going to be aggressive. He's going to push it downfield, and that's going to be a big difference, Tim, between Quinn Ewers and Arch. He's got the bigger arm, and Quinn, bless his heart, had great touch, a great short intermediate check down, Charlie, but he didn't hit the deep ball like Arch will. So they're going to try to stretch that field vertically, probably eight times a game, I think, but. I think it could be that defensive slugfest for a big chunk of the game. Who makes the big turnover? Who hits the big play like we saw in the Cotton Bowl?
Yeah. Can you pressure Arch but also contain him? You know what I mean? There's my big
question.
question.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Because he's a runner, man, just like his grandpa. He's so much more like his grandpa than he is his dad or his two uncles. It's crazy.
Absolutely.
There aren't a lot of people who remember watching. It was on television, but watching Arch Manning play live, on television like I did. I mean, that guy was he should have won the Heisman Trophy, but didn't. Especially one season there. And, me being an Alabama fan, I don't forgive him for beating Alabama that one year, but Alabama came back and beat him. But a guy who played with a broken arm, with the cast. I mean, you know what I mean? So,
he had adversity.
Yeah. But my admiration for his grandpa is through the roof. But you're right. I mean, it makes so much sense for both of these defenses to come after these first-time, full-time starting quarterbacks. And Julian Sayin, I remind everybody thinks of him as like when you think of Julian Sayin, the way he's been portrayed as Dan Marino type, whatever, he's just going to stand there in the pocket, and no, he was considered a dual threat quarterback coming out of high school, Carlsbad, California. And his coach there has reminded me a couple of times of just the playmaking ability he had when things broke down to just sort of like elude guys. That's all you got to do is elude guys, get 4 or 5 yards and keep the drive alive. He was really good at keeping the chains moving and could be spectacular when he had to be. But of course, now let's quick talk about this aspect of the game I wanted to get your take on. We keep talking about Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis, Ohio State's first 3 wide receivers. What a room. And then you got Bryson Rogers, Mylan Graham, and a young guy. I've got my eye on Quincy Porter, who Jeremiah Smith basically thinks is going to be better than him. Who just all he does is make spectacular catches. Like all Chris Carter does was catch touchdowns.
Yeah, right.
But my point is the Texas receiver room sneaky good? I mean, compared when you think about the ballyhoo about Ohio State's wide receiver room, the Texas receiver room is pretty damn good. It ain't really lost. Who's the kid they lost?
Well, Matt Golden, the first rounder of the Green Bay Packers.
He's pretty good.
I think he dropped like one pass last year, and that was the transfer they got from Houston, and they're going to miss the hell out of him. But, I think when you said sneaky good, Tim, I think that's a very good description. He lost 9 of their top 12 receivers are gone.
Yeah.
Okay. But they have DeAndre Moore, and then they got Ryan Wingo, who was the 5-star freshman from St. Louis last year. He played. He was like probably their 4th receiver and everything. So DeAndre Moore, and who says I want to have 1,200 yards and win the Blitnikoff. So he's not shy about his goals. So they are good. And to that end, too, they have like 3 5-star freshmen they got in this year, and who knows which one might emerge, but. You talked about on our podcast about the tight end, Max Clare of Purdue. now at Ohio State. And Texas got the tight end from Cal, Jack Indries. And so remember that name, because I could really see with these two young or new quarterbacks, Arch is 21 now, that we could see a big tight end presence, I would think, for both teams.
Yeah.
That safety valve, try to back off the rush a little bit. So, I'd say look out for the tight ends. But again, Sark's not going to be shy. He's not going to go in there running the ball, 58 times, anything like that. Not that they could, because they didn't run the ball well against Ohio State at Jerry World.
Yeah, you don't win these games.
No,
you don't win these games by being bashful. Nobody's going to hand you anything except maybe a box lunch when the game's over.
Yeah, exactly.
The bottom line is, you're right. I mean, that's the real conundrum for these offensive staffs, right? Is we know we've got to be bold at some point, several points in the game. Do we trust our quarterback to be that guy? Yeah, that's where the fact that Arch has started, a couple of games and won them and got his feet wet. You got to think advantage Texas in that regard. But I'm telling you, Julian Sayin is talented, and so if you can get through that first quarter, like Ohio State fans were, I don't know if you can boo on Twitter. But because the game was at Minnesota, but it was in 2021, C.J. Stroud's first start for Ohio State, and he even checked his Twitter, I guess, at halftime like an idiot, like he shouldn't do. You should never look at Twitter, but that is what it is. And then the second half, he played extremely well, and then he had a great game against Oregon. Just the defense was not there yet for Ohio State. But you've got to let these guys. It's hard to think. You got to let these guys make their mistakes. You got to let them learn what they can't do. And the worst thing maybe for anybody is great success on that first drive, thinking you got it all figured out, right?
Absolutely. And I got so much respect for Caleb Downs, the safety for them. And I think I got him as a Heisman contender. I don't know if you think I know his ability is that good and that top notch. He'll probably be a top 5 pick, next year in the draft. But and I got my eyes on him. I think they're going to use him different ways and probably use Jeremiah Smith. They got 2 new coordinators. Hartline got promoted at OC. Matt Patricia, former NFL head coach. Do you think much is going to change in terms of scheme?
Offensively, no. Defensively, all the players have been, during the spring and then definitely during preseason camp when we've gotten to talk to them, they've hinted at changes defensively. But, a change defensively means you got this gap instead of that gap, or we're going to shade you across this guy to open this guy. I mean, right on down the line. But they're all intrigued, let me put it that way, by what Matt Patricia has brought that's different, I guess is the best way of putting it. And meanwhile, offensively, it's going to be – this is the thing that Ryan Day has stressed. Is what Urban Meyer stressed when he was at Ohio State, and before that, Jim Tressel. It's the Ohio State offense, because if you're successful, next year your offensive coordinator may not be there. He may be the head coach somewhere else, or like Chip Kelly got into the NFL where he was trying to get to the year before when he was the head coach at UCLA. Nobody bit. So he went to Ohio State and teamed up with his, I call him his nephew, Ryan Day. And then now he got to where he wanted to get to, which is National Football League with the Las Vegas Raiders. So you want continuity. You don't want some guru coming in with the wishbone, and the next week coming in with the the West Coast offense. So next year coming in with West Coast. But with that said, Brian Hartline, who's been the wide receiver coach, as you well know, forever now. It seems like forever, like 7 years now at Ohio State. He's really big on knowing what the importance of the running game is and establishing that. That was on display for anybody who watched the Ohio State-Texas game 8 months ago, how much that running game mattered. And so where he goes play calling wise, and you know this, Kirk, Sarkisian calls the plays, right?
Absolutely.
Well, Ryan Day, Ryan Day has turned over play calling duties to Brian Hartline, just like he did Chip Kelly last year. But, as Ryan Day said the other day, if you were recording, YouTubing or recording the conversations of people fighting for plays to be called or questioning plays that are being called, it would be a YouTube sensation. I agree with him. I mean, there's a filter there, and it's your head coach who called plays, by the way. And so the fact that Brian Hartline's going to go off on a tangent and nobody questioned him, people don't understand how it works. Even Ryan Day even challenged Chip Kelly at times last year. So that'll be the interesting thing. The Matt Patricia, I think that's the secret weapon in this game, because Ohio State's defense is not going to be exactly what Texas saw 8 months ago.
It's not.
See what I mean? You can go back and look at that video all you want, but there could be major differences in the way they approach it. Because a guy like me sitting in the press box, you're trying to watch where the ball's going. You don't always see that stuff until the next day when you're rewatching the video, right? But I'm curious about that. Texas, what has Sarkisian stressed, do you think, over the last 8 months to get them over the semifinal blues hump in the college football playoff? What is he stressed more than anything else?
Well, he may not actually say it, but I think it's obvious, and that's the red zone. That's the elephant in the room for Texas, is that they were 101st in the country in red zone conversions, and he hates it when I ask him about it. I asked him about it Monday, and I said, do you feel like you have that fixed? And he went, he was ready for it, and he says, "What, do you want to hear a cool stat?" And we all went, "Yeah, sure, lay it on us." He said, "Well, 2 years ago we scored 50% touchdowns, and last year we scored 64% touchdowns when we were in the red zone." And he said, "We hope to be better." Very short answer, and he can talk for 5 minutes. He can talk as long as we can when he's answering the question. He's very good about that. So my question is, 64% touchdown rate. I think Ohio State was like 76. And it's also, who did you score those touchdowns against? It wasn't against Ohio State when they're the 1 yard line. And that's my biggest bugaboo. I wrote this week, he's probably the best play caller in college football. But I say between the 10s. Inside the 10, he struggles. They had that 1st and 1, and you saw the carnage that ensued. Yeah. He had a 1st and 1 against Oklahoma the year before, didn't score. So I don't know. If he has the whole playbook, the whole field to play with, oh my God, the stuff he dreams up is incredible. Hell, the Kansas City Chiefs ran a play, double reverse pass, last year. So, but do they answer that? And he constantly preaches being physical, which goes hand in hand with that red zone, as you know. And they lose 4 offensive linemen. So I think that's all that same, ball of wax that they got to figure out if they want to go the distance.
Yeah, I was going to say the second down play, toss left, Caleb Downs. Caleb Downs sees it coming, steps up into that gap, comes in unfettered, as I like to say, unfettered. He was bummed out. He didn't actually make the tackle.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? But Lathan Ransom, who, by the way, knocked Arch Manning out of the game on Arch Manning's only play in that game, Lathan Ransom comes up. I call those guys the 2 heat-seeking missiles last year. Those 2 safeties, the way they played almost in tandem, complimented each other. As in, hey, great play. No, I'm just joking. Complimented with an E each other. But now all of a sudden it's, 3rd and 8 or whatever it was at the and then the bugaboo, the real bugaboo in my opinion about Quinn Ewers is because he was up here for 5 months way back when. The real bugaboo, which I hope the Miami Dolphins figure out, I've never seen a guy get more tip passes than he did. And the third down play, Jack Sawyer tipped that pass because he looped inside. I don't know if it had been a touchdown because I thought there was great coverage on that play. But, now all of a sudden it's 4th down, and it was what it was, right? One of the great gaffes in Texas football history, one of the great plays in Ohio State history. Real quick, I want to ask you one other thing because I'm keeping you longer than I said. But I always love talking with you. Matter of fact, you were there when I got some big award after Ohio State way back when there at the Cotton Bowl or whatever that was at the national championship game. I appreciated you paying rapt attention to my horrible speech. But I digress. Defensively, you take Caleb Downs off this field. They've got 2 returning starters on Ohio State. who impressed who what's a name that impressed you, or what have you heard Texas being most concerned about, I guess is the better way of putting it, about this Ohio State defense, which has 8 new starters?
About the Ohio State defense?
Yeah, about the Ohio State defense.
Well, I think Sonny Styles is a linebacker. You talk about a
Yeah.
playmaker. I think they got to find some way to kind of neutralize him and not have him make too many disruptive plays. And, everybody's always worried about turnovers and stuff like that. And I don't know, Sark won't get into any game planning and
Right.
strategy. He just said, nope, I'm not going to divulge the game plan. I'm not going to go there. So, but you're right, though, with the offensive line and the defensive line, even though all those starters are gone, you had guys that played.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way Texas defense is. They had 5 defensive line transfers come in. One of them, Hero Canoe, who was at Ohio State for a couple of years. So they had to rebuild that defensive line. I don't think on defense Texas is going to have a Tavondre Sweat type, that wins the Outland Award.
Yeah.
But they may have a lot of the lesser ones that are maybe interchangeable and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Do their job. Yeah.
Yeah. But one thing about Matt Patricia, I know Sarkis said, we go back and study all this NFL film. And hell, I found myself watching the Atlanta Falcons and Deion Sanders. We were going so far back. So
Wow. Yeah.
they do their homework on stuff like that. And he said, I don't think they're going to change that much on defense because their whole defensive staff is back other than Matt Patricia.
Exactly.
So,
See, that's the fly in the ointment, though. That's the fly in the ointment, and obviously they're studying. They're going to go back and study that, and because you are a creature of habit. Finally, what got you there. You lean on what got you there. Your ability to turn a phrase is what got you where you are. And by the way, going from the Austin American-Statesman to the Houston Chronicle, man, wow, what an upgrade! What an upgrade later in the fall of your career, the late fall of your career.
The fourth quarter of my career.
Yeah. Real quick, I want to get your take on this. Although we could do another segment on just this. Is it crazy to you the upheaval that's going on in college football right now, just about deciding how we're going to decide things, which is the national champion? The idea of maybe hadn't been done yet, going to 16 teams next year after being 12 just for 2 years, because that wasn't enough, because Alabama didn't get invited last year, even though they lost to Vanderbilt and to a mediocre Oklahoma team. Are you kidding me, Alabama? And like I told you, I grew up an Alabama fan.
I know.
And then Ole Miss crying because that's what Lane Kiffin does best. Is it amazing to you they're still tinkering with this thing and want to get to, like, the Big Ten put out, 2018 playoff before they've even done 12 twice, before they've even done 16 twice, and yet they want to keep the conference championships involved because, well, lo and behold, long ago, the SEC invented the conference championship game, right? And they found a way to make extra money, which is what that was all about. Forget about settling it on the field. Because, Bear Bryant and all those guys, they didn't mind there being a little bit of a doubt about it, that we got the AP National Championship. What are you talking about? You know where I'm going with that. There were a lot of joint championships way back in the day, or quite a few. But it's funny how college football wants to jump into the future, but hang on to the past at the same time. In whatever way that past helps them make money. That's the way I look at it. What's your take?
We can't escape the money question. It's all about the money, and that's so sad. And it's good the players are finally getting their share. I hate the 4-time transfers. I hate that. I go, what do they consider their alma mater when you play at 4 different schools? But I think, I wasn't wild about 12 initially, but let's give it some time to see if it works. Personally, if we go to 16, it's fine. I would say no buys, because buys are so precious, even though the 4 teams that had them lost. It was kind of potential, but
I call them the bye-byes. Go ahead.
Good line. I like it. I like that. So I wish they'd let 12 work a while, and then if they wanted to graduate to 16, but and I always hate the other argument, Tim, where they go, well, but if we have 24 or 28 teams, look at the fan bases, how interested they are. I said, well, let's let everybody in the playoffs, so every fan base is interested. Let's preserve the regular season. It's the only regular season that is meaningful. NFL, just because it's the NFL.
Yeah.
Major League Baseball, NBA, it's even college basketball now. It's like people are just waiting for the playoffs, and that's the beauty of college football and games like we're going to see on Saturday, that every game does matter. And that's sacred to me, and I hope we never lose sight of that. So if we go to 16, fine, but can we just slow down a little bit? And the other thing, finally, Tim, is that I'm not sure how many people are operating for the greater good of the game.
Yeah.
It's about let me get mine, and I find that very distasteful.
Well, Kirk, the first time I heard an athletic director in the Big Ten, it wasn't Ohio State's athletic director, he referred to the games, the football and basketball games, men's basketball, as inventory for television. You understand what I'm saying? Okay, we'll take like being in a grocery store. We'll take this game, Ohio State, Michigan. Okay, what game you want? You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. Soon as Georgia and Oklahoma got together in that lawsuit way back when, so they could have be on television more than 3 times in 2 years. You remember those days?
Oh yeah, that was ludicrous. 5 times in 2 years, the most you could ever be on TV. You tell people like that, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Every game wasn't on TV.
No. We'd watch the replay like up at Ohio State. You'd watch up here. You'd watch the replay the next day on WOSU. And I remember watching the Daryl Royal show where they would show the elongated the elongated shows. I remember when Rice upset Texas way back when, and there was that weird backward pass. I remember different things, but you had to get those glimpses, and now it's like it's everybody if you're not on television, everybody's on television. So that's a stupid comment to make, but it is crazy. But yeah, you're right. If you go to 28, why not go to 56? Everybody who finishes 500 or better.
Why not?
That's just one more weekend. Right?
It's all about inventory and marketing and entertainment. But let's keep the sacred sport that it is. So that was back in the days when I filed by Western Union. You probably don't even remember those days.
I remember Western Union. I remember filing by teller. I remember filing by whatever that machine was where you hey, and then you call and you go, we didn't get it, and so you do it again.
I remember little Radio Shacks. They were terrible.
Oh my God! Nothing worse than that. All of a sudden, seeing your screen blank, and the telegram one time that was sensitive to sound. So Ohio State's playing in Minnesota in the old whatever the dome was up there before the Hubert H. Humphrey Dome up there, and my telegram kept doing weird stuff because it was so loud in there because Minnesota looked like it was about to upset Ohio State when Lou Holtz was there. As the head coach, but it was crazy. But I don't miss those days at all. I've always been for latest greatest when it comes to any kind of electronic hardware, but usually the year later when it's on sale. You know what I'm talking about?
I hear you.
Anyway, hey, Kirk Bohls, thanks for joining me on the Tim May Show here, man. By the way, I got a co-host by the name of Clay Hall. I want to get his name in there, but he's a longtime TV guy here in Columbus who also retired. But we got dragged out of it, and back into the mess. But like you said about the goosebumps, about these kind of games, if you're a true college football fan, man, Saturday can't come fast enough. This matchup, right?
Keep writing, keep talking. We don't do retirement, okay?
There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Kirk Bohls. Turn my microphone up here. That was definitely fun. I've known of Kirk Bohls, like I said, for a long, long time, and that interview took long enough. Let's get into the wrap up here of this latest greatest Tim May Show, and I wanted to throw it out there to you, Clay. I want you to ask me one question, some kind of question about what I think about Saturday's upcoming game, Texas #1 in the country versus Ohio State #2 in the coaches poll. Ask me one question, and I will reciprocate, and then we will end it for everybody. And by the way, I think just to make things fair, okay, I'm going to put a timer on here, and it's going to be I don't even know how to work my timer. It's going to be 45 seconds I have to respond, and if I get in under the gate, I might get a prize. You see what I'm saying? But 45 seconds, we're going to time my response after you ask the question, and then vice versa. So we don't hang on to these people any longer than they have to be here.
This will be a miracle if you get in under 45.
Okay.
All right. So I think it's a question we've all asked each other and many other people as well. What do you want to focus on? What player on the field are you wanting to see up close in this game?
That player would be whatever tackle has Colin Simmons lined up over him. Texas's really extremely talented edge rusher. Obviously had a ton of sacks last year. Didn't have a sack against Ohio State in the college football playoff semifinal, but he did make some plays, including a couple of pass tips or pass breakups. He is a tremendous talent. People who know Texas football know some of these towns where players come from that are really hard-nosed players. Duncanville is where he's from in Texas, and they've always been known for maybe not being continual state championships, et cetera, but they put out hard-nosed football players. And so I'm looking Ohio State has got the guts of its offensive line back, but I'm looking at those two tackles. Austin Searville on the left side and Ethan Onyeonwa, or Philip Daniels on the right side.
Charlie Daniels band.
True that. Now here's my question for you.
Show me that.
I overran it. Overran it by 5 seconds.
All right.
Here's my question for you. I'm going to ask you the same question,
okay,
but don't answer the same way. But I'm going to ask it more specifically from an Ohio State standpoint. Other than the quarterback, who are you most interested in seeing play on Saturday in terms of stepping up now that he is considered one of the guys you've got to lean on?
It's Kenyatta Jackson Jr., and I've been singing his praises for a while, his potential and what he can do off the edge as well. And I just started to hear people say at the beginning of camp, Kenyatta. And I was like, that's my guy. And I'm waiting for him to explode and let Arch Manning know you're in our house, brother.
Yeah.
Because 97 is going to be expected. You're a senior. You're an upperclassman. You are one of us. You're a vet. You have to carry this defensive line right now. And so, Kenyatta, let's see what you got, because Arch needs to field you on Saturday.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a man who's used to deadlines, though, working in television. I'm used to just BSing until my head explodes, or the person I'm talking to head explodes. But it is very interesting, and we didn't plan this. We both named edge rushers as our key players, because we know the key Saturday is who gets the better pressure, constant maybe, but consistent pressure on first-time, full-time starting quarterbacks. That's going to play such a huge role in this game. Other than that, ladies and gentlemen, who isn't looking forward to Arch Manning's clear debut? You know, it's kind of like he's eligible for Rookie of the Year because he only played a little bit. You know what I mean? And Julian saying, of course, eligible for Rookie of the Year. Coming out of Saturday, who's everybody going to be talking about more? That's the big question. But with that said, this is Tim May for Clay Hall. Clay, I enjoyed once again the Tim May Show featuring Clay Hall. And until next time, we'll see you then.